So it's in Brookston, Indiana. All right. All of us have given our camp talk at this point. Some of us gave it last Friday. Mr. Sturgeon gave the last of his today to two of his classes. So your child should know if you have a balance. All of your children were told during the camp talk whether they have a balance or not. And we understand they're not paying their bills. We understand all that. But it's the easiest way for us to communicate that information to you. So all of them should know and be able to answer. If you need to email us, feel free to email us. But your child should be able to tell you if they have a balance or if they have a permission slip turned in. I know all of my students, if they didn't have one, I gave them another one. I'm assuming that both of these guys did as well. So they should have a permission slip and they should know if they have a balance. We make the checks due or the money due the Tuesday before spring break. That way we can get checks deposited and they're not out there for 10 days hanging out. I know I would appreciate having mine deposited and not having to wait 2 weeks for that to happen. So that's why it's that Tuesday. If you want to send in money at any point before that, feel free to do that. If March 26th doesn't work out for you, if it needs to be when we come back from spring break, we understand that as well. Just communicate with one of the directors and just say, hey, can I send it the morning you leave for camp? Absolutely. We never say no to somebody making a payment. And we're more than happy to work with you to make that happen. But that's kind of when we're shooting for that to be. It can be paid in full at any time, or it can be paid in payments at any time. All right, so what it is. It's a YMCA camp that they provide us with the facilities, but we run everything. So it is a YMCA camp, but they run certain events. They provide our meals, but we as directors and then the high schoolers that we bring, we do everything else. So really they're just a place for us to rent so we can use their space for the most part. The classrooms are 224 acres. They keep buying more and more property all the time, so it might be more than that at this point. And then we take around 100 high school counselors, sophomores, juniors, and seniors at one of our high schools. And the kids are broken into groups between 6 and 8. You know, it could be an odd number here and there. Boys and girls will be in the same groups. Stars and heroes are mixed together. Globetrotters and heroes are mixed together. Obviously, cabins are single gender, but groups and everything else, it's kind of a hodgepodge of mixing of that. Oh, go back one.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, concepts in science and math. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, I saw science and math up there. So we really turn this over to our counselors when we get up there. Mrs. Kletch is our curriculum director for camp. She has dozens of lessons running around in her head all the time. But our high schoolers are the ones that are actually the teachers while we're up there. We train them in the 6 weeks leading up to camp. And almost all of them have been, except for our sophomores and juniors. My own son is a junior, and he was the first COVID year. So there were 2 years where we didn't get to go. So we have some counselors that didn't get to go. And some of them are eager to go for the first time. We'll have some seniors that got to go as 7th graders, and they've been a counselor for 3 years. This will be their 3rd year. So they definitely are a veteran person, and they know camp fairly well. But we pick the best of the best, and it's not the smartest of the smartest, and that's not what we mean. We pick kids that fit our kids. We have artsy kids, so we need artsy counselors. We have sporty kids, so we have sporty counselors. We have band, choir, and orchestra kids, and they need counselors that look like them and have the same interests. So I would say we're not taking the top 100 GPA kids by any means. Some of them are, sure. But we're taking kids that our kids need as role models and kids that they need to relate to. So we'll take a kid that all of us have had as a 7th grader, and we're like, oh my gosh, this kid. And then they mature over the 2 and 3 years that we don't see them, and they come back and we're like, oh my gosh. Like, we have kids that need you to be their counselor. And that's the kid we hire, because some of your kids need counselors like that. Others of them need the you know, the kid that's all about grades, they need those too. So we take a wide range of counselors because we have a wide range of kids. We do lots. We do. We're gonna there's gonna be lots of words up here. We're not expecting you to read all of that. Hopefully you picked up a paper from the table over there. If not, you can get one on your way out. There's a QR code on here that has a lot of this information on it as well. It's also on the school website under the Camp Tecumseh tab. We'll have all this information on it as well, if that's not working. But it's school. If we did not tie it to curriculum, they wouldn't let us go. We, fight with them every now and then. Somebody will say, well, let's get rid of camp. The only cost really that the school district incurs is to pay us as directors, and no offense, but we don't get paid all that much. We do it because we love camp. I would honestly do it for free because I love going and I love seeing kids at camp. But we do all, the heavy lifting. We, unfortunately, we have to charge $150 for kids to go, but that kind of funds the program. But Mrs. Clutch has designed the curriculum that we have to do these lessons at camp, or else they would just have us do them here. So there is lots of science incorporated into here. Like I said, I'm not expecting you to read all of these things, but there's like a lesson about erosion. There's a lesson about moss on trees. Mrs. Clutch has this imaginary thing called the tardigrade that she tries to convince kids exist. It's this little water bear thing. She convinces them that they exist. They don't exist, but the kids believe it, and that's really all that matters. They don't exist, Mrs. Clutch. Anyway. Yeah. So, but there's lots of science lessons. There's some math lessons. One of the math lessons, kids are like, oh my gosh, I got to do math. And so I kind of explained to them, one of their lessons is they have to walk 50 feet, count how many steps they took, and do a little bit of division. Like there's a math lesson. That tells them their pace. That way there's certain lessons they have to pace a certain distance, and instead of pulling out a tape measure, they just walk that far and they know how far they've gone. So it incorporates it into kind of real life uses. And sometimes it's not necessarily to trick them, but they're like, oh man, I did math, I didn't even think about it. That's kind of the whole idea. They get graded in math, English, science, and social studies while we are at camp. So there are lessons to do. We provide all of the school supplies that they need. They don't need a pencil, they don't need a folder, piece of paper. They cannot bring their school iPad. That is not something they are allowed to bring to camp. If they want to bring their own, I wouldn't send it with, but if you wanted them to, they could. But they're not allowed to bring their school iPad because something could happen to it while we're up there. But it's school, it's work. They get graded on those 4 subjects. Whoever their math teacher is will get a spreadsheet from us that says, here's all of the kids you got in class, here's their math grade. And then, of course, the team teachers, we already know that. They'll do things like, there's a place called Ghost Cabin. And so the counselors will take them to Ghost Cabin and they do a little creative writing sample. For social studies, there's some geocaches. I mentioned that in my camp talk, and the kids seemed really excited about geocaching. I know there's some apps about geocaching and things. But we have some geocaches that we'll set up while we're there. They can do a little bit of mapping things. So we try and say it's school without being school. Some of your kids will excel at this. Some of your kids just can't sit in a desk. I was one of those kids. I hated sitting in a desk. But my classroom, when I'm up there, is 224 acres. So I don't need to sit in a desk. I can walk around, I can run around, I can do all sorts of things. Skip if I want to, I guess. Go ahead. Do you want to add something?
Quickly, just to clarify, if you see on the screen, you'll see sometimes it'll say students will, sometimes it says students may. There are certain lessons we require everybody to do, and then the counselors and the students will decide what additional lessons they need to accomplish. So we kind of set up like those projects teachers will do where they're like, here's 10 things you can do the more complicated ones that get you points. You do one thing takes a long time or a bunch of easier little things. So the students have say in what they're doing as well, and so do the high school kids. So everybody gets a little different taste, and hopefully they get to do the things that they are choosing to do.
kind of some of the fun we have. I see some kids in here. Let's just say we have some fun with the bridge. I don't want to ruin anything for them. I see a couple of my kids, intermingled in here. There are things we call specials. There are 3 of them. Canoeing is one of them. Climbing Mount Wood, which is a little rock climbing wall, and then Black Hole, which is a big sled. Up until last year, I always used to say in the history of Camp Tecumseh, kids that got nervous about canoeing. We show them this picture, and I like it because they're wide-bottom canoes. They don't flip over on accident. Kids are nervous about it. And I used to say up until last year, in the history of Fisher Junior High, we had 1 canoe flip over on accident. And it was a large boy, and he had a tiny little friend canoeing with him. And we used to have a lesson where you had to scoop water out of the lake and then take it to Nature Center and look at it under a microscope and look at some stuff. This was pre-clutch, but some microscopy thing. And instead of, it was Corey, right? Was it?
Yeah.
Instead of him letting his little tiny friend lean over the canoe to get the water, he thought, I'll do it. And so he leaned over and the canoe flipped over. And then last year, one of my lovelies, he panicked. We're not exactly sure how he did this. He got stuck on the shore, on the bank, and instead of waiting for the camp staff to come get him, decided to use his oar to push away from the bank when he was sideways on the bank and tipped him. So now we've had 2 canoes accidentally flip over out of thousands of canoes. So they don't flip over. There's camp staff, they wear life vests, and it is a joy for us as adults to watch kids canoe, especially kids that have never canoed
They're
before.
horrible.
They are awful.
Right to the edge of the lake and hit the side of it.
Main camp is over that hill that you can see in the distance in the top photo, and I love standing up there and just watching kids, and they'll paddle straight toward the shore, and they'll start screaming that they're going to crash, but they don't stop paddling. They just keep paddling, and then they run aground, and then they don't know what to do. So camp staff has to go get them and push them off of the. Or they paddle from the same side and keep running in a circle, not doing what's happening. So they will all canoe. They're assigned times to do these things. Otherwise, some kids would canoe all day. Some kids would rock climb all day. So they're given an assigned time. For whatever reason, some of their counselors keep it as a secret. I don't know why. Others of them, as soon as they get there, they're like, here's when we'll do these 3 things. And some of them are like, I'll tell you later. It's like, okay. But every kid gets the opportunity to do that. There's a harness. Camp staff runs these 3 events for us. I've never seen a kid get hurt on the wall. I've been going this.
You can't anymore. It's all safe. It's a self-belay system, so they can even let go of the rope and the kid just barely goes down. So yeah, it's safe.
I will say up in the top of the picture on the right, you see a multicolored thing. That's what we call a hot air balloon. I'll talk about that in just a minute, but it got stuck on the wall up there.
Chocolate owl.
Oh, the chocolate owl at the top. The real skilled climbers, they made that wall too easy. When I first started going, this would be my 17th year going, I think. I don't know. 1 or 2 kids would get to that little ledge. Now, kids are up there all the time. I don't know. I don't know if they made it easier or our kids are just
They're
crazy
not
climbers. I don't know. But yeah, there's a chocolate owl up there. And this is Black Hole. It's a corrugated pipe. This is another math lesson that they get to do. They get to find out their velocity, which is some formula, mass, weight, time. I don't know. They'll figure it out. But how much they weigh, how long it takes them to go down, and the distance that they travel, they have to figure out their velocity. So
It's really
they've done
just
math, but
doing
they
6 again and
start
racing.
bragging about how fast they went.
It's fun.
Can I use fast, Clutch? Is that a scientific-y enough term?
Yeah, it'll be all right.
Okay, all right. She gets picky whenever we say terms that, if I say feet.
Hey, there's a
Instead
reason
of
we cover
meters.
75 standards.
Yeah, okay. All right, so this is hot air balloons. Each evening after dinner, kids will do 1 of 2 things. Depends on when your kid's there and which group they're in. One night they will build a hot air balloon. That's what these are. They're made out of tissue paper, glue, and a tiny bit of string. We use a barn heater. That's that yellow thing there. We use a barn heater. What?
This one doesn't have the fire.
What?
I'm going to try to adjust. Keep talking.
Okay. But one night they'll build a hot air balloon, the next morning they will fly it. So if you're one of the parents that's going with us to camp, if your child builds a hot air balloon, Mrs. Clutch supervises that. It's boring. But it has to be done correctly. And it does take time. And when I say it's boring, I enjoy watching my kid do just about anything. So you can watch them build it, and after like 10 minutes, you'll be like, okay, what can I do now? But the next morning, they will fly it, and that's super exciting. Especially, we do it in the morning, it gets a little bit cooler, so they fly higher. They have to do a little weather lesson about where they think it's going to go, some predictive things, right? Wind speed, direction, all that kind of stuff, and then they fly. If they don't build their hot air balloon that night, they will square dance, which is the most fun thing I think just about every kid will do. And some of you are like, my kid is not coordinated. It doesn't matter. It's literally organized chaos. It's like line dancing for the most part. Cotton Eye Joe, Virginia Reel, all these kind of things. And we almost get 100% participation in that because even the kids are like, I'm not doing it. After they watch maybe 2 or 3 dances, they're like, how can I get in this without surrendering that I'm told I wouldn't do it? And then we've learned, Brovicast and Sturgeon have never done balloons. Well, you have now.
I have to.
But we learned a couple years ago, the kids that that square dance on night 1, they build their hot air balloon night 2. After enough of them get done, they start coming up going, hey, can we square dance again? Can you put music on so we can square dance again? And that is like, that just makes my heart sing because it's like, oh, and you told me you were gonna hate it. And now you want to do it and we're not even making you do it, right? Or we're not even asking it, you're asking us to do it. So parents, again, if you join us, feel free to join in, jump in and dance with us. You'll work up a sweat, there's no doubt about that.
I want to comment real quick on the picture on the right. Flying balloons is one of my favorite things too. I love square dancing, but you do get to see the kids be little kids again. The picture on the right, when they launch that balloon, we send it out to go get it, unless it leaves camp, which is the ultimate goal. But they will chase after it. We'll yell at them. We will say, flap your folder, make it go higher. And they will flap that folder thinking that they're going to get that balloon to go up higher so they can try to make it go. And then they get it, fly it again. They all just revert back to being like 6 and 7. It is a beautiful thing to see. I absolutely love watching those balloons go.
And if you're the second session, there'll be balloons all in the trees all around Main Camp. They'll be stuck in the trees all over the place. Night 1, whether it's Monday night or Wednesday night, this is Mr. Jackson. He's a former teacher here at Fishers Junior High. He also taught at Riverside Junior High. He also taught at what is currently Fall Creek, which at the time was HSE Junior High or middle school, whatever it was back then. He has since retired, but he comes up and tells stories. And they're not camp stories, they're life stories. They're stories to try and teach kids kind of about life a little bit. They're not spooky, scary, or anything like that. He is a fantastic storyteller, and interestingly enough, he's also employed by the state of Indiana as a bird. What do they call bird? Something.
Official bird watcher, actually.
Yeah,
He knows something about birds.
Sight.
He can recognize like 400 by sight and 600 by sound, or vice versa, one of the two. Like the first day of spring, him and his brother split the state of Indiana in half. He goes, sits in the woods all day and charts what birds he hears or what birds he sees, which to me sounds just mind-numbing, but he loves it. And if you talk to him about, like, hey, what kind of bird is that? He'll tell you, sounds like this, and all that kind of stuff. But he'll tell stories on night 1. We all meet in the same place. All the kids at camp, counselors, we're all there, parents, everybody's at listening to Mr. Jackson's stories. And then on night 2, counselors and teachers make fools of ourselves. Make fools of ourselves performing skits for them. We kind of have some fun with that. Certain skits teachers do, certain ones counselors do. But as Mr. Sturgeon said, they're top secret, so we can't talk too much about them. If you scan, that's really small writing again. But again, if you scan the QR code, this is in that information. This is their schedule for the day. And like I said, it says day 1, day 2, and day 3, because it doesn't matter if it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whichever day 1 is for your child, this is what they'll do. Whatever day 2 is, that's what the schedule is. Whatever day 3 is, that's what the schedule is. It's interesting now that we don't start until 9:15. When I show them, because we all show them the same thing, when we show them on day 2, where they have to wake up at, between 7 and 7:30, they're like, oh my gosh, oh, what? It's like, well, yeah, we work off of their camp schedule. They have certain times where they do their meals year round. So they're not going, oh, you all don't start till 9:15. Okay, we'll wait until 8:30 to have breakfast. No, they have breakfast when they have breakfast. So we have to kind of adjust to them. But they're like, oh my gosh. And then of course you'll have the kids like, well, can I get up early? Like, well, sure. Like you can get up whenever you feel like. So we do get up a little bit early. For those worried about nighttime, I didn't mention nighttime. Lights go out at 11, but we're back at the cabins about 9:30, between 9:30 and 10. Closer to 10.
Yeah.
And some kids will go right to bed. Other kids will want to stay up a little bit, but lights out at 11. And I tell my kids, lights out at 11 means we turn the lights out at 11. If you need to put your AirPods in and listen to music till 2 in the morning to help you go to sleep, do that, but don't disturb anybody. The kids that want to go to sleep, let them go to sleep. So that's when we do lights out, and that's, like I said, if any of you are joining us, like that's really our cabin parent, that's their really one job, is to supervise kids in the cabin. That's it. The rest of the day is pretty much yours to do whatever. But I'll cover that for the parent meeting when we have that back down in April. All right, sir, I think. Is it school? Yes. Already covered that. Next. Maybe I needed my clicker. We are outside unless it's thunderstorms. Camp Tecumseh has maybe better radar than some of our news channels. And I'm not exaggerating. I've seen this thing. Oh my gosh. They can almost down to like feet, meters, whatever. Where lightning is, how far away it is, how fast it's like. I mean, they are on it. As soon as they think some kind of storm might be coming, one of the camp staff is literally camped in front of that thing. They have a radio, and they keep us apprised of, hey, there's a storm. It's this many miles away. It might get here. If it gets here, whatever. So and if it's drizzling, we're outside. If it's cold, we're outside. If it's hot, we're outside. It's Indiana. We've had snow on Monday, sunburns on Friday.
The roofs of the buildings at camp are not white. That is snow from the that we went.
And I'll just preface this by saying, I'm not saying you can't get a hold of your child, but cell service is spotty at best. Camp Tecumseh has a landline, and they have radios. All of us camp directors, we have radios. If something happens and you need to get a hold of your child, if you call that landline, they get it to us, and we find your child, and we can make that happen. If you try and text them or call them and they don't answer, it's probably because they don't have service right now. And weather-wise, we could have horrific thunderstorms here in Fishers, and it could be blue skies up in Brooksville, or vice versa. So if you're like, oh my gosh, it's storming, it's crazy, and I wonder what Johnny's up to or whatever, he might not have any idea that there's any weather whatsoever. So if you're looking at weather and worried about your child, look at Brookston. But if you just have to get a hold of your child for some reason, if you call that landline, you just put in Camp Tecumseh, Indiana, you can get that number right off. I tell kids we take charter buses because we pay to use them. They make some charter buses. I think. Actually, if we use charter buses, we wouldn't be able to afford camp. We've looked in the past; it would just be way too expensive. It's already expensive enough. Medicine. We will have medicine drop off for those of your children that take meds on a daily/nightly basis. April the 10th will be medicine drop off. We'll send this out numerous times before then, but April the 10th, it'll be medicine drop off. You can bring it. Mrs. Clutch and her crew will collect any of the meds. We give meds at breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then before bed. And as far as, you have is allergies on there? I can't remember. We have taken kids with any allergy you can
It's on
think
the
of.
food page.
Food allergies, we will send a link to the menu as it gets closer, and if your child has food allergies, there'll be a link that goes right to Camp Tecumseh. You'll click on it, you'll fill out the information, when your kid's gonna be there, what they're allergic to or whatever, and they deal with that all the time. My first or second year teaching, we had a student who actually has a law named after her. Name was Paige Cassidy. She was allergic to, however many food groups you can be allergic to, like 9 food groups or something. She was allergic to 7 of them, and she still went to camp. And then she went back 3 years as a high schooler. If your child has a peanut allergy, do not worry about anything, because Camp Tecumseh does absolutely nothing with peanuts. They don't use peanut oil, they don't have peanut M&Ms, they don't have peanut trail mix. They do there's no peanut anywhere near that place, because that's the #1 food allergy for kids, so they just make it easy, nothing with peanuts. So if peanuts is your issue, I'm not saying don't worry about your kid or whatever, but don't worry about camp providing them with anything peanut related. Yes, Clutch?
They also, for us, do no pork.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you, I'm working over here.
That's why.
Yeah, for our Muslim students, they do no pork products while we're there, because they know we have Muslim students, and so pork is not on the menu while we're there. So if any of you are concerned about that, that is not a concern either. Oh, there you go. Is the food good? It's food, they prepare it well. If your child's extremely picky, they're not going to, first of all, they're not going to starve in 3 days. They might dehydrate in 3 days, but they're not going to starve in 3 days. But I mean, it's cafeteria-ish food. I mean, like night 1, we're going to have baked ziti. I can almost guarantee you, baked ziti with green beans and breadsticks or something like that. It'll be something like that. But they have a salad bar that is amazing. Pretty much any topping you can think of. In the morning, they have little bowls of cereal. They have a fruit and yogurt bar. You can send some snacks with your child, but they have plenty of food. There's plenty of food. But like I said, if they're really picky, they might just have to be a little bit less picky. But they're not going to starve with their coupons.
The food's served family style, so they can eat as much as they want too. It's not like a cafeteria they get in line. There's tons.
Family style comes out on a tray. They pick what they want. Like they pick it off the tray. Oh, I'm not talking about baked oatmeal. No. Not doing it.
Greatest breakfast. I'm not an oatmeal guy. It's like cake. They give you brown sugar and raisins. I put a little milk on it. It comes out warm. It is so popular that now camp makes sure that it is served at breakfast both sessions. The only meal they double, because they got tired of teachers and high school students complaining that they didn't get to go to the session with baked oatmeal.
Overrated.
Wonderful.
Overrated.
Wrong about that. One other quick note about allergies. We'll send out in about a month or so, maybe a little less, a link for if your child does have a food allergy that's not a peanut allergy. Like I used the example today, if you're allergic to chicken or something, you will have the chance to contact camp through a form to say, my kid is going on these days with this school, they are allergic to chicken. The camp cafeteria manager will get that email, and then if they will look at the menu, and if chicken is served, they will contact you and say, hey, we're having chicken on Thursday, but we will prepare this different dish for your child. If it's like my kid is allergic to like everything like Paige, they'll get a hold of you and say, here's what we need you to do and what we can do to help navigate those allergies. Now, if you as a parent forget to contact camp about a food allergy and the kid gets up there and goes, I'm allergic to, I don't know, bread, then they're going to be around bread and they're going to have to avoid bread on their own. There's nothing we can do about it when we get to camp. So I told the kids in class, I said, if your parents are trying to off you, they may not contact camp about your allergies. So that will be the first hint you have in a long line of your parent wanting to get rid of you. So when we send that email out, take care of that if you have food allergies, unless it's peanuts, then you don't have to worry about that at all.
I have to steal that.
Actually, I would say almost any nuts of any kind, even tree nuts.
I'm stealing that, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the kids got panicky, but some of them, they're like, yeah, I had suspicions.
How I'm totally mistaken. All right, these are what the cabins look like. Well, the boys' cabins look like this. The girls' cabins are a little bit older, but pretty much the same. Each cabin has its own bathroom with, 2 sinks, 3 bathroom stalls, 3 showers. We all talk to them about showering and how that works. There's like a little dressing area outside the shower because we know some students are like, oh my gosh, I don't want people to see me undressing, and I understand it. So there's a little dressing area for them right outside the shower. I kind of am very detailed with them about that to kind of put their mind at ease, or at least try to.
I stress that they have to shower.
Yes, I do say that, they have to shower.
Gross. Thank you, cabin parents.
But yeah, so, all right.
There's electricity in there too.
Yes.
They will bring their own bedding, because you don't want to sleep on a pillow if somebody else has their head
Yeah,
on.
that is what I'd tell my kids, toilet paper, that's all that they bring. That's all that they provide for us.
And a mattress.
There's a mattress and toilet paper. There's not a sheet, blanket, pillow. There's not toiletry. There's no shampoo. They have to bring all that stuff. And I haven't. Day 1, they have to bring a lunch. Is that coming? I can't remember.
No, but
They will have to bring their own lunch because by the time we get up there, the cafeteria is closed on day 1 for Monday people and Wednesday people. The first session people are in the cafeteria eating, so there's nowhere for 200, 300 people to go. So we need to bring our own lunch. So that is something. It could be a Subway sandwich. It could be whatever you Lunchable, whatever you want to send with them. But they will have to bring their own lunch on that day. Does everybody go? No. We hope so. We try to get everybody to go, but we're not going to drag them there. Do they have to go? No. If they do not go, there's alternate work to do. This is very easy for me as a STARS teacher to say that, but the alternate work is created by Mrs. Clutch. So all the STARS kids, when they hear that, go, oh my gosh. I'd rather do anything than an alternate Clutch assignment. Heroes and Globes are like, what? What's wrong with that? And so, science is hard. All right, it's a challenge. And so, with it being school, it would be like if they didn't go, they would miss 3 days of school. So there's alternate work to do to make up those grades that they're not getting while they're at camp. And so most of my kids are pretty much like, oh, I'd rather go. And we'd rather they go. They'll have more fun there. Do they pick their groups? No. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Holy cow, it'll be impossible. There's that, the 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon or whatever game. My gosh, I can't imagine the spider web of this person, that person. We'd have groups of like 300 or something, right? And so, no, but they do get an opportunity to pick a person to be in their group. And the way we do this could be almost as confusing. Sturgeon does it for second session, Brovicast does it. Bless them, because I want no part of this job. At some point here in the next month, 6 weeks or whatever, they'll come into my class or one of their classes and we'll say, put your name, pick 4 friends that you might want to be in your group, and 99.8% of the kids will get one of those 4 people. They all want the first one. Well, of course they do. Who wouldn't? But, we'll give them their information. 2 minutes later, they'll be like, I don't know anybody in my group. Yes, you do. Well, I picked these 4 people. Okay. None of them are in my group. Okay, well then somebody picked you. So it's one of those things, those guys have done this a long time. They will know somebody in their group. Either somebody picked them to be in their group or they picked somebody to be in their group. They'll get home that afternoon. I can already tell you, my kids, it'll be April the 11th or whatever it is. Yeah, April the 11th. They'll get their information and they'll come home and they're like, I don't know anybody but Kevin. I don't know anybody in my group. I don't know anybody. Yeah, they do. They do, I promise. They do. They just don't know everybody in their group yet. Because we don't give them their group. We give them their information. And then they have to kind of figure it out because that would take too long and be too hard. So we tell them what group they're in, what table they're in, and all that kind of things. And then they text their friends what group they're in or whatever. They will know somebody in their group. I guarantee it.
Because they're different at each of those.
Yeah.
There's 10 people at a table. Some of those will be high school kids or a parent at a table. The rest are junior high. The groups are 6 to 8. The cabins sleep 14 or 15 with a parent or 2 in there, plus high school kids, so they're different in each of those. And if you have a phenomenal child, I will tell you, Mr. Broviak and I, and we'll talk Mr. Stump, they'll probably end up with like 2 or 3 of their best friends in their group and in their cabin and maybe even at their table. And then we tell the kids, this is our big threat right now. If you are a pain and not doing your work and not behaving in class and getting in trouble, and over the next 2 months, I can guarantee you, you will know not a single person in your cabin or in your or at your table. You will be the odd man out. Why does everybody have a friend? Because everybody else is nice.
We also have some of you are like, you know, my son or daughter, you know, can't be around this person or that person or whatever. We also give them the opportunity, like, you know, I hate to think about it, but it does happen, like if somebody bullied them in 3rd grade or whatever. We give them that opportunity when they pick their friend, like, if this person would make me miserable being in my group, keep them away from me. We give them that opportunity as well, because we want everybody to have a good time, but we also don't know everybody's backstory and all that kind of thing. And I think we all tell them the same thing. I don't need to know the story. Just tell me who the kid is. That's all I need to know. I don't care, like, the reason why. Okay? But then I also tell them if they give me a list of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids that they can't be around, that says a lot about them. Maybe they shouldn't go to camp. If they have that many people they can't be around, that's really, maybe it's a problem with them. So we give them that opportunity too. Yeah. When I do my camp talk, I did it on, I looked this year. Alicia, do you remember what year? It was like 2016, I can't remember. I took a screenshot of my phone because I was talking about like how much I walked. And it was a Monday, and I take like 20,000 steps. And so I took a screenshot of my fitness app or whatever, so I could show the kids, you know, here's how many steps I walked. It was like 9-point-something miles or whatever. And I was like, see, we're outside, we walk a lot. And they're like, oh my gosh! And I was like, yeah, I know it's a lot of steps. They go, no! Up in the corner of the screen it said, no service. And I was like, oh, I didn't even notice it. So now I've circled it now on my little presentation. I go, oh yeah. And I was standing right by my bunk, which is at main camp, and I didn't have service. Unfortunately, parents, there's no secret for parents to get Wi-Fi either. I mean, it's just kind of, I'll be in the middle of the woods walking in the middle of nowhere, and my phone will go ding, like, and I have a text, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm in, like, literally the middle of nowhere, and I'll get a message. I'll be in the middle of main camp, nice, beautiful sky, no service whatsoever. So that's what I was mentioning earlier. They don't need their phone. They will take it. We tell them not to because things get lost, broken, stolen all the time. But they'll bring it because it's their flashlight, it's their music, it's, you know, they've downloaded shows to watch or whatever on the bus, or, you know, to help them go to bed or whatever. So we just tell them it's their responsibility. If they leave it at Ghost Cabin, they drop it off the suspension bridge, I tell them to wave to it as it falls, because we're not sending a search party for it. And someone like, oh, and they think we're kidding, and we're not kidding. So that's between you and them, whether they take it or how responsible they are in this conversation. And, you know, they're going to bring them. So we've kind of given up that fight as far as telling them not to, but we just tell them that it's their responsibility. Stardy, did you have something else?
Yeah, just on the Wi-Fi note for parents that go, and I know that's not everybody here, but if you are somebody who's signed to go, there is Wi-Fi in the buildings in their main work building that you can access to do work from up there. So, I mean, they are a functioning facility. They do have Wi-Fi, and there's abilities to connect for the adults that are up there.
Cabin parents, we will have our own meeting on April the 10th at 7. It'll be a lot smaller than this one. And we'll talk just about, it'll be shorter than this one, and we'll talk just about your kind of job responsibilities and kind of to touch base, just make sure everybody can still go. Things change, whether you can ride the bus or you're going to drive or whatever that is. We still have, no, we don't either, do we? I was going to say numbers wise. Maybe like 2 moms first, maybe? Brovie, maybe? We have room for like 2 hero stars, A through H parents, moms. And we can take some more dads for session 2. A couple.
Yeah.
Moms, we have waitlist second
Session
session.
waitlist moms.
And we're full on.
And I have 2 potential dads who
yeah, 2
emailed me
potential
the last
dads
2
that
days.
contacted
Full of
Sturgeon.
our dads.
But at this point, we'd have a wait list for dad's second session. So if you are one of those parents, thank you for volunteering, because we couldn't go to camp without our cabin parents, because there aren't enough teachers to go and they wouldn't want us in their cabin.
I don't want to be.
And I don't want to be in
You
their
can do
cabin.
that.
It's mutual. All right, so if we've answered any question that you have and you don't have any questions for us, that's kind of the end of our talk. So feel free to exit the premises, and I'm not throwing you out, but if you're like, I'm good, I don't have any questions. If you have questions, we'll be glad to answer as many questions as you have.